Japan, land of the rising sun. But for many years it was also the land of the Bonnet Bus. A nostalgic relic of simpler, less hectic times, they proved their worth in transporting countless passengers in both urban and rural settings. Their variety of models and liveries make them a standout among classic buses anywhere in the world. This is the story of the Japanese Bonnet Bus, how a simple bus transformed a complex nation. Hi, this is Jeffrey. Now, a while back I profiled a Japanese bus known as the MR430. Now, that bus was very unique in that it was a twin steer, similar to the Bedford Val. But it was not mainstream. However, we know that there were many mainstream Japanese buses, and one of them was known as the Bonnet Bus. Now, the Bonnet Bus first appeared in the 1920s, but it gained much popularity in the post-war period up until the 1970s. There were many variations of the Bonnet Bus, and in this video we're going to take a look at some of the most iconic types of Bonnet buses. It's a really fascinating story, so let's get started in learning about the Japanese Bonnet Bus. Japanese buses with hoods, a nostalgic reminder of earlier, less hectic times. Show a picture of such a bus to a Japanese person over the age of 60 and you will get an immediate reaction. A smile and a memory of a less frenetic Japan, calmer and simpler. Bonnet buses were a distinctive style of vehicle characterized by a long front hood or bonnet housing the engine, similar to American trucks of the same era. They became an iconic part of Japanese rural life from the early post-war years through the 1970s, remembered today for their nostalgic charm and rugged utility. The first Bonnet buses in Japan appeared in the 1920s and 30s when imported American truck chassis such as Ford and Chevrolet were modified locally to carry bus bodies. These early conversions allowed regional transport companies to offer service in areas with poor infrastructure, especially mountainous regions where railways were scarce. After World War II, Japan faced a shortage of passenger-carrying vehicles, and Bonnet buses became a practical solution. Domestic truck makers like Isuzu, Hino, Nissan, and Toyota produced chassis that were adapted into buses by specialized coach builders. The bonnet style provided several advantages. The forward engine layout was simple to maintain, the long hood helped with cooling on steep mountain roads, and the rugged truck frames handled unpaved routes well. By the 1950s and into the 1960s, bonnet buses were widespread across rural Japan. They often had a high boxy passenger cabin mounted behind the hood with narrow hand-operated doors and wooden or sometimes metal seats. So let's now take a look at some of the most well-known models of post-war bonnet buses. The Isuzu BXD30 was introduced in the late 1940s. This bus represents efforts by Isuzu to supply reliable passenger service in recovering rural and urban areas. In 1950, the Hino BH10 appeared and was one of the earliest Hino bonnet buses. The BH10 appealed greatly to urban transport users. But there was to be one further and final refinement of the bonnet bus. And so, what would the final development of the Japanese bonnet bus be? It was the BXD30. From the 1960s to the early 1970s, the Isuzu BXD30 became the replacement of the earlier BX series, and it became one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic, of all bonnet buses. Bodywork was often by other manufacturers such as Kawasaki or Fuji Heavy Industries. They served well into the 1970s, especially on rural routes, and were often the last bonnet buses to be retired. Now, let's take a look at some of the basic specifications of the Isuzu BXD30 bonnet bus. Number 1. Length is often about 27 feet, but would depend upon specific model and bodybuilder. Number 2. Width is 7 feet 11 inches. Number 3. Height is 10 feet. Number 4. Weight is 10,450 pounds. Number 5. Passenger capacity is often up to 28 seated, depending upon configuration. Number 6. Engine is the Isuzu 130 horsepower diesel. And finally, number 7. Top speed ranged from 50 to 65 miles per hour. But the 1970s were to be the last decade for bonnet buses in the land of the rising sun. Hitachi Nakamura, a bus enthusiast from Japan, explains why.
As Japan's economy modernized and road conditions improved, rear-engine and underfloor buses became more efficient and comfortable. By the late 1970s, bonnet buses were rapidly phased out of regular service, surviving mainly in remote villages. Today, bonnet buses are celebrated as nostalgic symbols of the Showa era. A few preserved vehicles still operate as sightseeing attractions in places like Shirakawa-go, Nagano, and Hokkaido, offering visitors a ride into the past.
Today, collectors, museums, and enthusiasts have helped keep their memory alive, ensuring that the colorful and iconic bonnet bus remains a charming, but not forgotten, chapter in Japan's rich transportation history. And so there it is, the story of the Japanese bonnet bus, the simple yet effective bus that helped Japan recover in the post-war years. Now, what's really also interesting about the bonnet bus is all of the different paint schemes that they had. It led to a very colorful landscape in the post-war years in Japan. So, do you have any interesting stories about the bonnet buses in Japan? That would be really interesting to hear. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at the Japanese bonnet buses. And as always, thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.